John was addressing a heresy that was creeping into the church, that because of the work of Christ, people didn't need forgiven of their sins. They were proclaiming Christ and not proclaiming the need for forgiveness. Does that sound familiar? People don't need forgiven, they just need revelation. Well, people who are already forgiven don't need forgiven and just need revelation. But people that have not been forgiven, their sins have been forgiven, but they've never accepted it and been put into union with Christ. We are made new by grace through faith. The grace has been extended and the faith is never accepted. That's not forgiven. Forgiveness is the exchange of God's grace towards me and my acceptance towards him of what he's done for me. The gift is not mine if I reject the gift. Here's why that error happens. There's a reformed theological idea that says God only selects those who will receive it. So if you've ever been saved, it's because you were chosen. If you're not saved, you weren't chosen. That's an error. God extends grace and revelation of his grace to everyone. And the error in that is that grace is irresistible. Grace is not irresistible. He doesn't take away your choice, or there would be no authentic relationship. And God is more glorified by our choice of him than anything he forces upon us. Because he is loving, and he is relational, and he is a companion to us. He is in union with us by choice. He's glorified by our recognition and choice to submit to him, our choice to be in union with him, our choice to entrust ourselves to him. Doesn't that edify him more than I'm not sure I trust you and he saves me anyway? He's inviting me into a relationship that saves me. I don't earn the relationship by choosing it, but I enter into the relationship by choosing it. I don't earn the relationship by choosing it. See, that's where we get into trouble. The Calvinist idea in this Reformed theology, and it's an incredibly well put together systematic theology. But this idea of irresistible grace means that, and his fear was, how can I, who am horrible, lowly, dirty sinner, how can any good be in me? And if there's no good in me apart from Christ, then how can I get Christ in me apart from him just doing it without me choosing it? So Calvin actually thinks God's regenerating people and making them good so that they can choose Christ. And I'm here to tell you, there's nothing in scripture that says he regenerates you and puts Christ in you apart from your choosing him, apart from faith. So Calvin added to scripture to reconcile something that he had conflict with. He says that God chooses and regenerates people, making it possible for them to then, Jesus has to show up in people so that there's some good in them so that they can choose Jesus. That's what Calvin's saying, and that is an error. And what's happened is people who come from that Reformed theology background then come to know the truth of the new covenant, that God is not withholding and he really loves everybody and he's made himself available to everybody. And they think, okay, then God has to have taken up residence in everyone so that everyone can choose him or not choose him. They have no choice apart from Christ already having taken up residence in them. And so they come up with this crazy unbiblical idea called inclusion or universalism, that God is in essence redeemed everybody and brought everyone into union with Christ, and salvation is just coming to know what is already true of everyone. And I'm here to tell you, there's nothing in scripture that says the goodness that my being able to recognize the goodness of God is predicated on God already having moved into me. It doesn't say that. It says that all men are without excuse because God has made himself clearly known through what is visible. He's made his invisible qualities known so that all men are without excuse. All men are without excuse. Every single individual person who's ever been born is without excuse because God has made himself known enough to know that we are sinners and need salvation, and that when Christ then is accepted as payment of our sin, that isn't meritorious. My choosing to believe in him doesn't somehow earn his salvation. It's not a good work to put my faith in Jesus Christ. The goodness of our salvation is not my choosing him, it's him being available to be chosen. My choosing doesn't merit the gift. My receiving doesn't merit the gift. If we could get over that one obstacle, then Reformed theology would be fixed and inclusion would go away. It is not a good work, a meritorious work to choose salvation. I can have faith. In fact, I can't not have faith. Every time I flip on a switch, it's in the presumption of it turning on a light. Every time I sit in a chair, it's in the presumption that it's going to hold me up. And my faith doesn't make it true. There's no merit to my faith. If the light doesn't come on, it's not because I didn't believe in the switch enough. It's because my faith was misplaced. I flipped the wrong switch, or the light doesn't work. It's not for lack of faith. It wasn't a meritorious work. It's not that I needed to believe more in the chair when I sat down, and that's why it collapsed. No, my faith was misplaced. So there's a an error in saying I can't perform a good work because there's nothing good in me. So I can't choose Christ until he's regenerated me. And then that turns into people coming to know the new covenant without letting go of the error of he's got to move into me before I can choose him. He's got to regenerate me before I can choose him. And you bring that error to the new covenant and you say, well, then everybody's regenerated, just not everybody knows it. That is how inclusion has had a resurgence in the error. The heresy of inclusion has had a resurgence in the modern era, because people who believe you cannot choose God apart from God in you. So he has to save you before you can be saved.